In quiet shadow falls where everyone knows everyone, grease-stained hands often tell simple stories of honest work, but today those hands belong to someone extraordinary as the Black Talons MC thunders down Main Street, eyeing Martinez Auto Repair for their next target. Their leader, Alexander Razor Graves, smirks at what seems like an easy mark, but behind this unassuming garage door lies 20 years of special forces operations, and these bikers are about to learn why choosing this mechanic's shop will become their worst nightmare. When metal meets metal and sparks begin to fly, Shadow Falls is about to witness how one man's past can turn a small town garage into ground zero of a war that will bring a criminal empire to its knees. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The morning sun hadn't yet peeked over the eastern hills when Miguel Martinez unlocked the heavy front door of his garage. The familiar scent of motor oil and metal greeted him as he flicked on the lights, illuminating the meticulously organized workspace. 3 cars waited patiently for his attention: Mrs. Henderson's Buick, with its mysterious knock; Joe Thompson's Ford pickup needing a new transmission; and a classic Chevelle that just needed some tender, loving care. Miguel's movements were precise as he began his morning routine, each motion carrying the fluid efficiency of someone who'd spent decades mastering their craft. But beneath that mechanical grace lay something else, a warrior's awareness that never quite faded even after 15 years of civilian life. Morning, Dad, Elena called out, pushing through the side door. With 2 cups of coffee, his daughter had her mother's beauty and his stubborn determination. She graduated top of her class in business school, but chose to help run the family garage instead of taking some corporate job in the city. You're early, Miguel said, accepting the coffee with a grateful nod. Wanted to get the quarterly books done before we open. Elena paused, her expression turning serious. Also heard some things about that motorcycle gang that moved into the old Weber place. They've been making rounds to local businesses. Miguel nodded slowly. He'd heard the whispers too. The Black Talent MC had been systematically working their way through Shadow Falls, offering protection to local businesses. Those who refused tended to experience unfortunate accidents. The rumble of motorcycles cut through their conversation. Through the garage's wide windows, they watched 3 bikes cruise past, moving slow enough to make their presence known. The riders wore black leather cuts emblazoned with the Black Talons emblem, a fierce bird of prey with talons extended. 4th time this week, Elena muttered, just looking for now, Miguel replied, though his eyes tracked every detail of the riders' movements, old habits refusing to die. The morning brought their first customer, Harold Harry McDougal, former high school teacher and owner of the cream-colored Chevelle. The old man hobbled in on his cane, but his eyes were sharp as ever. Miguel, my friend, Harry called out, tell me you've worked your magic on my baby. Almost there, Harry, just waiting on one part to come in, should be here by. The rest of his sentence was drowned out by the return of the motorcycles, 5 of them. This time they pulled into the parking lot in a practiced formation that spoke of military training. Miguel noticed Elena tensing slightly as she moved closer to Harry. Their leader, Alexander Razor Graves, killed his engine but left his helmet on as he dismounted. He moved with the confidence of someone used to being feared, each step calculated to intimidate the other riders. Miguel recognized Phoenix, Shadow Beast, and Storm from the intel he'd been quietly gathering, spread out in a loose semicircle. Martinez Auto Repair, Razor called out, removing his helmet to reveal a face marked by a distinctive scar running along his jaw. Heard good things about your work. We're closed for lunch, Miguel replied evenly, moving to stand between the bikers and Harry. Funny sign says you're open. Razor smile didn't reach his eyes. Besides, this isn't about car trouble, more like community outreach. Shadow Falls is changing, growing. Businesses need protection these days. Elena stepped forward. We have insurance, not the kind that matters. Razor's gaze lingered on Elena a moment too long, making Miguel's combat-trained muscles coil with tension. See accidents happen, tools go missing, customers find their cars damaged. Smart business owners understand the value of additional coverage. A new voice joined the conversation as Daniel Parker, Miguel's 17-year-old apprentice, Rode up on his bicycle, the boy froze when he saw the bikers, his young face showing a mix of fear and defiance. Shops closed. Daniel Miguel called out firmly, "Come back tomorrow." Razor's attention shifted to the boy apprentice. "Hug good to invest in youth. Teach them how the world really works." The threat in his voice was subtle but clear. Miguel stepped forward, his movement casual but placing himself precisely between Razor and Daniel. When he spoke, his voice carried decades of command experience that he usually kept carefully hidden. "We're not interested in your kind of protection. Shadow Falls isn't your territory." Something in Miguel's tone made Razor's eyes narrow. The biker leader studied him more carefully, perhaps sensing that this wasn't just another small-town mechanic. "Everyone's interested once they understand the stakes." Razor replied, "We'll give you time to think it over, but remember, Shadow Falls is changing. Only question is whether you change with it or get broken by it." The bikers mounted up with practiced coordination as they roared away. Miguel watched their formation through eyes trained to spot military precision. These weren't ordinary thugs. Their movements spoke of professional training. "Dad," Elena's voice carried concern. "Get Daniel home," Miguel replied quietly. "Then help me close up early. We need to prepare." As Elena led a protesting Daniel away, Miguel pulled out his phone and drafted a simple text message to a number he hadn't used in years. "Time to wake the ghosts." The response came almost immediately. "The team's ready, just say when." Miguel looked around his beloved garage, built over 15 years of honest work. He'd chosen this quiet life, this peaceful town, to leave the violence of his past behind. But as he began moving certain tools to more strategic locations, his hands remembered other skills. The Black Talons would soon discover they shouldn't have provoked. Dawn hadn't yet broken when Miguel began installing the new security cameras. To any passerby, they looked like ordinary surveillance equipment, but these had been modified with military-grade specs courtesy of his old team's connections. His fingers moved with practiced efficiency, remembering skills from operations long past. "Those aren't standard cameras, are they?" Elena's voice startled him less than she probably hoped. She'd inherited her mother's quiet steps, but Miguel's instincts had been honed by decades of staying alive in combat zones. "Just some upgrades," he answered, connecting the final wire. "Coffee smells good. Don't change the subject, Dad. First, the reinforced doors last night, now these cameras. What aren't you telling me?" Miguel climbed down from the ladder, studying his daughter's determined expression. She deserved the truth, or at least part of it. "The Black Talons aren't just thugs on bikes," he explained, accepting the coffee. "Their formation yesterday, their movements, they've had professional training. Military, probably special operations." "How would you know that?" Elena's eyes narrowed. "Dad, what exactly did you do in the army?" Before Miguel could answer, Daniel came rushing through the back door, out of breath and wide-eyed. "Miss Martinez, they're at Maria's restaurant." The Black Talons. Miguel's muscles tensed. Maria Santos had been one of Shadow Falls' first business owners to openly refuse the gang's protection racket. "Stay here," he ordered, but Elena was already grabbing her jacket. "Maria is my godmother," she reminded him firmly. The walk to Maria's restaurant took less than 2 minutes. Even from half a block away, they could hear Razor's voice, calm but menacing. "Accidents happen in kitchens all the time," the biker leader was saying. "Grease fires can destroy everything in minutes. Smart business owners understand the importance of proper protection." Miguel entered quietly through the back door, years of tactical training taking over. He could hear Maria's defiant response. "My family has run this restaurant for 30 years. We don't bow to threats." "Times change," Shadow growled, and Miguel heard the distinct sound of breaking dishes. He moved silently through the kitchen, noting positions, angles, threats. 4 Black Talons, Razor and Shadow inside, Beast and Storm watching the front. Professional setup, but they'd left the back exposed. "Amateur mistake. Consider this a warning." Razor continued, Next time. What?" Miguel's voice cut through the tension. As he emerged from the kitchen, Elena positioned herself near Maria, while Daniel, who'd followed despite orders, stayed by the back door. Razor turned slowly, unsurprised. "This is a private business discussion, Martinez, not in Shadow Falls." Miguel's stance was relaxed, but perfectly balanced. "Not with family." Shadow sneered, moving to flank Miguel. The biker was big, well-trained, but Miguel spotted 3 tells in his movement that revealed military background, dishonorable discharge. Probably Maria's restaurant feeds half the town's kids for free when their families are struggling, Miguel said. Evenly, that makes her family and family looks out for each other here. Detective Tom Sterling chose that moment to walk in, his timing suspiciously perfect. Everything all right here? Maria just leaving, Razor answered smoothly, having a friendly chat about business. Opportunities, funny kind of business that needs 4 guys to make a pitch, Sterling observed, his hand casually resting near his holstered weapon. The Black Talons withdrew with practiced precision, but Miguel caught the look Razor gave him. This wasn't over after they left. Sterling turned to Miguel. You know they're going to escalate now. I'm counting on it, Miguel replied. Quietly back at the garage, Elena confronted him. Dad, what's really going on? First the cameras, then how you moved in there. That wasn't just army training. Miguel checked his phone, reading a message from his old teammate Victor. Equipment's ready, team can be there in 4 hours if needed. Elena, he began, there's something you need to know about my military service, but first we need to. The sound of breaking glass interrupted him. Through the new cameras they watched 2 Black Talons, Phoenix and Viper, methodically slashing customers' tires in the parking lot. Call Sterling, Miguel ordered, moving toward the door. Already did, Elena replied, reminding him again how much she was like her mother. But Dad, be careful, they're trying to provoke you. I know. He smiled slightly. That's their second mistake. Outside, Phoenix and Viper continued their work with military precision, Miguel noted. Their positions, their sight lines, their practiced movements. Special forces like he'd suspected wouldn't do that. If I were you, he called out, his voice carrying quiet authority. Phoenix spun combat knife ready. Yeah, what are you going to do about it, old man? Miguel's response was pure emotion. Before either biker could react, he closed the distance and disarmed Phoenix with a technique taught only to certain special operations units. The knife clattered away as Miguel stepped back, resuming his relaxed stance. Like I said, he repeated calmly, wouldn't do that if I were you. Viper moved to attack, but Phoenix grabbed his arm. The lead biker had recognized the technique, and Miguel saw the realization in his eyes. They'd seriously underestimated who they were dealing with. Razor's going to want to hear about this, Phoenix muttered as they retreated to their bikes. Elena emerged from the garage as police sirens approached. Dad, what was that? Miguel's side was me showing too much. They'll be back, and not just for intimidation. Now good, Elena's voice carried her mother's steel. Maybe it's time they learned why you don't threaten family in Shadow Falls. Miguel watched the Black Talons right away, already anticipating their next move. He'd spent 20 years fighting battles like this, and one thing was certain, the real war was just beginning. Telling and preparing this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Night had fallen over Shadow Falls when a lone motorcycle pulled into Martinez Auto Repair. Unlike the Black Talons' aggressive machines, this bike purred quietly, its rider moving with the kind of stealth that came from years of covert operations. Miguel was waiting at the side door before the rider could knock. You're early, Victor, Miguel said. Embracing his old teammate, Victor Ramirez removed his helmet, revealing weathered features that matched Miguel's own. Phoenix showed up at my garage in Pine Valley this morning, asking questions about you inside. Elena was closing the books when she looked up and froze. She recognized Victor from the single photograph her father kept in his office. 4 men in desert camo, their faces younger but carrying the same intensity. She now saw Uncle Victor. She hadn't seen him since she was 12. Look at you, Victor smiled, all grown up and running the family business. Part of it anyway, Elena replied, studying both men. Though I'm starting to think there's more to our family business than fixing cars. Before either could respond, Miguel's phone buzzed. It was Trish Parker, panic clear in her voice. Miguel, there were bikers outside Daniel's school. They didn't do anything, just watched, but their message was clear: stay at the hospital. Miguel ordered, I'm sending someone to get you both. Victor was already moving. I'll handle it. These guys are watching you too closely now, Dad, Elena said after Victor left. I need to know the truth. What exactly did you and Uncle Victor do in the military? Miguel checked the security feeds before answering. We were part of a special operations unit, the kind they Don't talk about we specialized in dismantling criminal organizations that had military training like the Black Talons, exactly like them, Phoenix and Razor. They ex-military two special forces probably discharged for reasons they don't discuss. Elena absorbed this. Is that why they're really here? Because of Miguel shook his head. They chose Shadow Falls because it's perfect for their operation, small town strategic. Location stretch law enforcement. They didn't know about me, but now detective. Sterling's arrival interrupted them. The detective looked troubled. Got some intel. You need to see. He spread photos across the counter. They showed Black Talons members meeting with men in expensive suits, exchanging packages, monitoring traffic patterns. They're not just running protection rackets. Sterling explained Shadow Falls is meant to be their distribution hub. They've got former millet guys setting up supply lines using legitimate businesses as cover. How many bikes did you count coming in today? Miguel asked. At least 20 new ones. They're calling in reinforcements from other chapters. Elena studied the photos. These suits, they're not bikers, private security. Miguel recognized the type. Expensive professionals. This goes higher than just the Black Talons, the garage's security system. Pinged through the cameras, they watched 5 motorcycles approach, led by Razor, but something was different about their formation. Elena, Miguel's voice carried command. Back office. Now Dad, now. She moved but stayed where she could see. Razor entered first, flanked by Phoenix and Shadow. Their stance was pure military, hands carefully positioned near concealed weapons. Quite the security setup you've got. Martinez, Razor observed. Military grade, almost like you were expecting trouble. Just cautious, Miguel replied. Bad neighborhood lately? Funny thing, Razor moved with calculated precision. Made some calls about you. Interesting service record. Parts of it officially don't exist. That a crime? No, but interfering with legitimate business operations that could get messy. Miguel's stand shifted subtly. Elena recognized the move from the restaurant, but saw it clearly now. Perfect balance, ready for explosive action. Shadow Falls isn't your supply line, Miguel stated flatly. Walk away while you can. Razor laughed. Supply line? This isn't about drugs, old man. That's just the surface. We're building something bigger, something that could benefit from someone with your experience. Not interested? No. Razor's smile turned cold. What about your daughter's safety? Your apprentice? Lots of accidents can happen in a small town. Miguel moved faster than Elena thought possible. In one fluid motion, he disarmed Shadow and had the larger man pinned against a tool chest. That's your last warning. Miguel's voice was deadly quiet. Threaten my family again, and we're not having conversations anymore. Phoenix and be moved to intervene, but Razor held up his hand. He studied Miguel with new respect and something else, recognition. You're not the only one with old teammates, Razor said quietly. Difference is mine aren't bound by rules anymore. Think about that when you're cleaning up tonight's mess. They left with military precision. But Elena saw her father's expression. What did he mean, tonight's mess? Miguel was already moving, checking defensive positions. They'll hit somewhere in town, somewhere personal. His phone buzzed. Victor's text. Parkers are safe. Got them to a secure location. Marcus is inbound with equipment. Elena. Miguel turned to his daughter. There's a go bag in the office. Safe combination. Is your mother's birthday. If anything happens, I'm not leaving you. No, he agreed, pride mixing with concern. You're too much like your mother for that. But you need to know what we're up against. Sterling's radio crackled. All units fire reported at Santos restaurant. Multiple suspects fleeing scene. Elena grabbed her keys, but Miguel stopped her. That's what they want. They're watching, waiting for us to split up Maria's family. Elena argued. Yes, Miguel agreed, touching his phone. That's why I had Victor put our people in place first. Maria's safe, but now we know their playbook. Through the cameras, they watched more motorcycles gathering at the edges of their view. The Black Talons weren't just sending a message anymore. They were preparing for war. Dad, Elena said quietly. What do we do? Miguel checked his phone again. Marcus, 30 minutes out, full kit. We defend what's ours, he answered, and we show them why they should have picked another town. The sound of breaking glass shattered the night as the first wave of attacks began. The first brick sailed through the garage's front window, triggering Miguel's reinforced security measures as glass shattered. Metal shutters slammed down automatically, Turning the garage into a fortress through the cameras, they counted 12 Black Talons members moving with military precision. They're testing our defenses, Miguel observed, watching Shadow and Beast coordinate the attacker movements. This isn't their real attack. Elena had already moved to their defensive positions, checking the equipment Victor had installed earlier. Security feed shows more bikes gathering 2 blocks east. Looks like their main force. Good girl, Miguel smiled grimly. You've been paying attention, learned from the best, she replied, then tensed. His bullets pinged off the metal shutters. They're getting bolder. Miguel's phone lit up with a text from Marcus. 5 minutes out, south entrance clear. They're not watching the loading bay. Miguel confirmed, studying the security feeds. Typical military blind spot. They expect attacks from the front. Detective Sterling's voice crackled through their radio. Miguel got reports of Black Talons hitting 3 other businesses. They're trying to split emergency response. No, Miguel corrected. They're creating cover for something bigger. Tom checked their clubhouse bed. It's empty right now. A moment later, Sterling confirmed place is cleared out, but we found something. Shipping manifests, bank records. This goes way beyond drug running. They're moving military grade weapons. Max sense, Miguel muttered. Ex-special forces military contacts legitimate businesses as cover. They're not just criminals, they're contractors. The security system pinged as a large truck approached from the south. Marcus Hayes hadn't lost his touch. The vehicle looked like any delivery truck, but Miguel recognized the subtle armor modifications. Elena covered the east window. They'll push hard when they see the truck. Right on key. The Black Talons launched a coordinated assault. Smoke grenades bounced off the shutters, creating cover for their advance. But Miguel had been ready for this. Remote-triggered sprinklers activated, clearing the smoke and revealing their positions. Marcus's truck backed smoothly into the loading bay as Elena provided cover. The big man emerged carrying equipment cases, his movements fluid despite the weight, just like Bogut. Marcus grinned, clasping Miguel's hand. Though the weather's better, brought the toys? Miguel asked, helping unload everything. You asked for non-lethal only as requested, though. These guys aren't playing by the same rules. Through their cameras, they watched Razor arrive with the main force, at least 30 bikes. The gang leader was suited up in tactical gear, now no longer pretending to be just another biker. Miguel Sterling's voice was urgent. Got another problem. Chief's ordering us to stand down. Says it's a local business dispute we shouldn't interfere with. They've got people inside the department. Marcus confirmed, unpacking gear. Same playbook they used in South America. Corrupt the authorities, control the response. A new voice cut through their radio. Victor, Parkers are secure, but you need to see what we found. These guys aren't just running guns. They're setting up a private military training facility outside town, using the drug routes to move equipment and personnel. Shadow Falls is just the beginning. Elena realized they need to control the town to control the supply line. Smart girl, Marcus approved, handing her tactical gear. Your dad said you were sharp. More bullets struck the building as the Black Talons began a systematic assault. Their movements showed clear military training, coordinated fire teams, professional tactics. They're hurting us, Miguel noted, trying to force us into predictable defensive positions, unless that's what we want them to think, Elena suggested, indicating the building plans. She pulled up. The garage has some features they don't know about. Miguel studied his daughter with pride. She hadn't just been learning the business, she'd been studying everything. Marcus, those flashbangs ready. Full set non-lethal riot gear too, just like the old days. Razor's voice boomed through a megaphone. Final chance, Martinez, stand down, let us in, and maybe we discuss terms. Fight, and we burn everything you care about to the ground. Miguel keyed his radio. Victor, you in position. Miss, yeah, ready when you are. Boss got eyes on their whole perimeter. Tom, you got what you need. Sterling's response was grim. Enough evidence to bury them, but we'll need federal backup. Local force is compromised. Good. Miguel turned to Elena and Marcus, because we're not trying to beat them, we're trying to expose them. Through their cameras, they watched the Black Talons prepare for their final push. Razor had transformed their gang into a military unit, every member moving with professional precision. But they'd made one critical mistake. They think they're fighting a defensive action, Miguel explained, checking his gear. They don't realize we've been playing the fence since they first rolled into town. Elena checked her tactical vest, another skill she'd apparently learned while he wasn't watching. All those cameras we installed around town this week aren't just cameras. Marcus grinned. Your dad had me wire the whole grid. Every business they threatened, every route they used. We've been gathering evidence. While they thought they were gathering strength, the first explosions hit their outer defenses as the Black Talons began their assault. But Miguel was smiling, the same expression Elena remembered from when he solved particularly challenging mechanical problems, ready to show them why you don't threaten family and Shadow Falls. He asked. Elena chambered. A non-lethal round been ready since they first rolled into town. Marcus light him up. The night erupted in carefully orchestrated chaos as Miguel's team executed their real plan. The Black Talons thought they were attacking a fortified garage. Instead, they'd walked into a trap 3 weeks in the making, and in the command center that used to be their office, Elena Martinez was about to prove that she was her father's daughter in more ways than one. The first wave of Black Talons hit precisely where Miguel expected: front and east side, standard military assault pattern. What they didn't expect was the network of defensive measures Elena had helped design, turning their own training against them. West team pinned down, Elena reported from the security station. Victors caught them trapped between the repair bay and the paint shop. Miguel watched his daughter coordinate their defense with natural skill. All those years of her studying the business hadn't just been about cars. She'd been learning strategy, planning, the art of controlling space. They're pushing hard on the south entrance, Marcus called out, manning his position. Professional breaching equipment, military grade. Through their cameras, they watched Razor directing his forces with tactical precision. The gang leader had shed all pretense of being the simple biker. His movements, his commands, everything screamed special operations training. Shadow and Beast leading their breach team. Miguel noted Phoenix coordinating their flanks. They're not just trained, they're used to working together. Elena's voice carried controlled tension. Dad, Detective Sterling's reporting multiple vehicles approaching from the north. Not motorcycles, black SUVs. The security feeds confirmed it. 3 armored vehicles moving with professional precision. These weren't bikers. Their movement patterns spoke of private military contractors, just like Colombia. Marcus muttered, local muscle for frontline work, professionals for backup. Miguel's radio crackled. Victor's voice urgent. Found something in their abandoned clubhouse. These guys aren't just running a training facility, they're setting up a private military pipeline, using Shadow Falls as a staging ground for international operations. Makes sense, Miguel replied, watching Razor coordinate with the new arrivals. Small town, strategic location, corrupt local officials, perfect setup for moving personnel and equipment without scrutiny. The first breaching charge detonated against the reinforced door, but Miguel had anticipated this. The explosion triggered their countermeasures, filling the approach with riot gas. East team falling back, Elena reported with professional calm. They're regrouping for a second push. No, Miguel corrected, studying their movement. They're adapting. Razor recognizes our defensive pattern. Elena shift to contingency 3. His daughter was already moving, implementing the backup plan. They prepared. The garage's lighting shifted, emergency systems activated, and suddenly the Black Talons' carefully planned assault turned into chaos. Multiple targets retreating. Marcus called out, they're not used to this level of resistance. Through their feeds, they watched Razor grab his radio, fury evident in his movements. The gang leader had expected an easy target. Instead, he'd found opponents who matched his training and exceeded his preparation. Martinez, Razor's voice boomed through their speakers, you're making a mistake. You don't understand what you're interfering with. Oh, I understand, Miguel replied calmly. Private military contractors using motorcycle gangs as cover, setting up training camps disguised as criminal operations, using small towns as staging grounds for bigger operations. The silence that followed was telling. Then Razor's voice returned, different now. Who are you really? Martinez, which unit? The kind that specialized in shutting down operations. Exactly like yours. Another explosion rocked the building, but this one felt wrong. Miguel recognized the pattern. It wasn't meant to breach, it was meant to distract. Elena checked the thermal cameras. His daughter was already moving. They're going under using the storm drains we found last week, not the ones we found Miguel smiled grimly. The ones we let them find. Marcus took up position as Miguel moved to intercept the underground team. They'd prepared for this, letting the Black Talons discover some of their defensive preparations while hiding others. Victor, you're up, Miguel radioed. Show them why we made those tunnels. The underground assault team never had a chance as they emerged into what they thought was the garage's vulnerable underbelly. They found themselves in a prepared kill zone. Non-lethal rounds and riot gas turned their careful planning into a scrambling retreat. 6 targets disabled. Victor reported with professional satisfaction. Their backup team is pulling back. Elena's voice carried warning. Dad, those SUVs are moving. They're bringing in heavy equipment. The security feeds showed what she meant. The private military contractors were unloading serious breaching gear. This wasn't gang violence anymore. This was a professional military operation. They're escalating, Marcus observed, going to full tactical assault. Good, Miguel replied, checking his equipment, because now we have proof that this isn't just criminal activity. Tom, you getting all this? Sterling's response crackled through. Every second. FBI is already en route. But Miguel, they're not going to let themselves get exposed like this. They'll burn everything first, as if confirming his words. New explosions rocked the perimeter, but these weren't breaching charges. They were setting fires, creating a wall of flame around the garage. They're not trying to get in anymore. Elena realized they're trying to trap us. Miguel watched Razor directing the operation, recognizing the tactics. No, they're trying to force us to burn our evidence. Standard cleanup procedure not happening, Elena declared, activating their final defensive systems, because they still don't know what they're really fighting through the smoke and chaos. Miguel saw Razor finally understand. The gang leader expression shifted from confidence to dawning comprehension as he realized the truth. They hadn't been attacking a defensive position at all. They'd walked into a carefully prepared trap laid by people who'd spent decades taking down operations exactly like theirs. All teams, Miguel commanded, execute phase 2. Show them why you don't threaten family and Shadow Falls. The night erupted in carefully orchestrated chaos as Miguel's real plan went into action. The Black Talons thought they were dealing with a stubborn mechanic and his friends. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Phase 2 began not with an explosion or an attack, but with the quiet click of Elena activating their town-wide surveillance network. Every camera they'd installed while repairing local businesses over the past 3 weeks came online simultaneously, creating a complete picture of the Black Talons operation. All sectors active. Elena reported, her fingers flying over the controls, getting feeds from Maria's restaurant, McDougal's store, the hardware shop. Everywhere they threatened people. Miguel watched with pride as his daughter coordinated their counterattack. On the main screen, dozens of video feeds showed Black Talons members across Shadow Falls suddenly realizing they were exposed. They're pulling back from their secondary positions, Marcus observed, watching their tactical display, trying to consolidate their forces through their cameras. They spotted Razor conferring urgently with the private military contractors. The gang leader's composed facade had cracked, showing the desperation beneath. Victor status on the evidence. Miguel radioed, got it all, boss. Weapons, manifest training schedules, financial records. These guys weren't just setting up a criminal operation, they were building a private army using Shadow Falls as their recruitment center and training ground. Detective Sterling's voice cut in. Miguel, you need to see this. Found a list in their records. Names of cops on their payroll goes all the way up to the chief. Not anymore, Elena replied grimly, sending data packets to Sterling's secure line. Every bribe, every threat, every corrupt deal, we've got it all on camera now. Outside, the Black Talons attempted to maintain their perimeter, but their professional discipline was cracking through the smoke. They watched Shadow and Beast arguing with the private contractors. They're splitting, Marcus noted with satisfaction. Professionals don't like exposed operations. Razor's voice boomed through their speakers, trying to maintain control. Martinez, you think some videos will stop us? We own this town. Check your phones. Miguel responded calmly. Across Shadow Falls, every business owner who'd been threatened by the Black Talons received a simple text message. Now Maria Santos was the first to act. Security shutters slammed down across her restaurant, trapping 2 Black Talons members inside at McDougal's store. Hidden sprinklers activated, driving away bikers trying to set fire to the building. Throughout town, citizens who'd been quietly preparing for this moment fought back, with carefully planned precision. Local resistance activating. Elena reported, pride in her voice. Just like we planned. Impossible, they heard Razor mutter over their intercepted communications. The whole town was coordinating. Not the whole town, Miguel replied over their channel. Just family, and in Shadow Falls, family looks after its own. The private military contract Cs were already withdrawing their black SUVs, peeling away from the chaos. They recognized a compromised operation when they saw one. Sir Phoenix's voice crackled over the Black Talons frequency. Our backups pulling out. We've got federal vehicles approaching from the highway. Who are you people? Razor demanded, real fear creeping into his voice. Miguel watched through their cameras as the gang leaders' carefully constructed operation fell apart. Just a mechanic and family protecting their home. Dad, Elena's voice carried warning. They're moving something from their secondary location. Big trucks, heavy security. The thermal cameras showed what she meant. The Black Talons were frantically loading equipment into unmarked vehicles at their training facility outside town. Not just equipment, Victor reported from his observation post. They're destroying records, burning files. Standard cleansing operation too late for that. Marcus grinned, patching into the federal tactical frequency. FBI's got their own surveillance up now. Satellites tracking every vehicle leaving town on their main screen. They watched Razor realize the full scope of what they'd done. The gang leader had thought he was dealing with local resistance. Instead, he'd walked into a carefully orchestrated trap designed by people who'd spent careers taking down operations like his. All that work, Razor's voice carried bitter acknowledgement. 3 months, setting up supply lines, recruiting personnel, establishing our cover. How long were you watching us? Since the first day you rolled into town, Miguel replied. You threatened the wrong family. Speaking of family, Elena cut in sharply. We've got movement at the Parker safe house. Black Talent squad approaching their position. Miguel tensed, but Victor's calm voice responded, all already handled. That team just found out why you don't mess with people under our protection. Through their feeds, they watched the would-be attackers retreat, several limping. Victor had clearly enjoyed teaching them that lesson. They're getting desperate, Marcus warned. Desperate man makes stupid choices. As if proving his point, new explosions rocked the garage, but these weren't breaching charges. They were using military-grade incendiary devices. Now they're going to burn everything. Sterling reported urgently, including their own evidence. Let them try, Elena replied, activating their final countermeasures because they still don't understand what they're really fighting. Miguel watched Razor organizing his remaining forces for one last push. The gang leader had finally shed all pretense of being a simple criminal. His movements, his commands, everything screamed military precision, born of desperate necessity. All teams, Miguel commanded, prepare for final phase. They want to see what we're really capable of. Let's show them. Through smoke and fire, Shadow Falls was about to witness why you don't threaten a family that specializes in taking down criminal empires. The Black Talons thought they were fighting for survival. They were about to learn they already lost. Flames painted Shadow Falls in shades of orange as the Black Talons launched their desperate assault. Razor had abandoned all pretense of gang activity. His remaining forces moved with pure military precision, using combat tactics that confirmed Miguel's suspicions about their background. 3 teams professional. Cancer movement, Marcus reported from his position. They're not trying to breach anymore. They're going for total destruction. Elena's fingers flew across their command centers, keyboards coordinating their townwide defense network. Maria's got 2 of their demolition teams boxed in. McDougal reporting their backup squad is trapped in the hardware store. We've got them scattered through their surveillance. They watched Razor directing the assault personally. Now the gang leader's movement spoke of elite military training. Miguel recognized the style. Delta Force, he muttered, watching Razor's hand signals. He was one of ours, explains a lot. Victor's voice crackled through their radio, found his real file in their records. Alexander Graves, former Delta operator, discharged after an operation in South America. Went bad. Same operation we were investigating before they shot our unit down. Miguel finished. It wasn't just a coincidence. He chose Shadow Falls, Dad. Elena's voice carried warning. They're bringing in something big, thermal cameras showing heavy vehicles approaching from their training facility. The screens confirmed her warning. 3 unmarked trucks carrying equipment that made Marcus whistle. Low military-grade thermite charges. They're going to burn everything, including their own evidence. Detective Sterling's voice cut through their channel. FBI is 10 minutes out, but Miguel. They've got roadblocks set up, professional barricades, armed personnel. They're buying time for what Elena demanded. Then answered her own question as new data flowed across her screens. They're moving something from their main facility, something big enough to need a helicopter. Miguel watched Razor coordinating the operation with cold deficiency, not moving, extracting someone important enough to have a contingency planned. Through their cameras, they spotted Phoenix and Shadow leading the assault on their south wall. The bikers had shed their leather for tactical gear, showing their true nature as trained military operators. Martinez Razor's voice boomed through their speakers. Last chance, stand down, or we burn every building in Shadow Falls to the ground. You still don't get it, Miguel replied calmly. This isn't about buildings. As if on cue, Maria Santos's voice came through their network. South team trapped and disarmed. Those military boys didn't expect resistance from a restaurant owner. More reports flooded in throughout Shadow Falls. Citizens who'd spent weeks preparing under Miguel's guidance were fighting back, not with violence, but with carefully planned coordination that turned the Black Talons' military tactics against them. Impossible, they heard Razor mutter over their intercepted CS. The whole town's working together. That's what happens, Miguel broadcast, when you threaten a community that knows how to fight back. A massive explosion rocked their east wall, but Elena was already responding. Fire suppression systems they had installed activated automatically, turning the Black Talons' own ensign, our attack, into chaos. Dad, Elena called out. Got movement at their command center. Looks like I see it. Miguel watched their thermal feeds, showing a figure being escorted to the waiting helicopter. Victor already on it. Boss, got clear photos. You're not going to believe who they're extracting. The images came through a man in an expensive suit being rushed to safety. Miguel recognized him immediately from old mission. Brief things, Richard Coleman. Marcus growled. Private military contractor, supposed to be in federal custody after that mess in Bolivia. Now we know who's really backing their operation, Miguel noted, and why they chose Shadow Falls. They're not just training soldiers, they're rebuilding their old network. Another explosion rocked the garage, but this one felt different. Professional military-grade breach on level 2, Elena reported. They're through the outer wall. Miguel was already moving. Marcus, contingency 4. Elena, initiate protocol. Echo. Victor already in position. His old friend replied. Just like Bogota. Through their surveillance network, they watched Razor personally leading a tactical team through the breach. The gang leader moved with the skill of someone who'd done this hundreds of times, but there was desperation in his movements. Now, you know what this really is, Martinez. Razor called out. You were there in Bolivia. You saw what happened when they tried to shut us down. I remember, Miguel replied, taking up his position. That's why we're not trying to shut you down. We're exposing you. Elena's voice carried triumph. FBI just breached their roadblocks 3 minutes out, and Dad, they're bringing serious backup. Theater feral tactical teams. Sterling confirmed. Real ones, not contractors, plus DEA and ATF. Someone made some calls. Coleman's not going to like that, Marcus noted with satisfaction. His whole operation's about to go public. Another explosion bigger than the others shook the entire block, but Miguel was smiling. That's the training facility going up, he explained. They're destroying evidence. Too late, Elena reported. Everything's already uploaded. Satellite feeds, financial records, personnel files, all transmitted to federal servers. They can burn the buildings, but they can't burn the truth. Through their cameras, they watched Razor realize the full implications. The gang leader, military discipline crack, showing raw fury beneath. You don't understand, Razor screamed. We were building something, a private army that could operate without government restrictions. Shadow Falls was just the beginning. No, Miguel replied quietly. Shadow Falls is where it ends. The night erupted in coordinated chaos as Miguel's team executed their final move. The Black Talons thought they were fighting to protect their operation they were about to learn. They'd already lost everything that mattered. Red and blue lights flooded Shadow Falls as federal vehicles poured into town. The Black Talons roadblocks meant to delay local police proved useless against the coordinated federal response. Through their cameras, Miguel watched Razor's expression shift from fury to cold calculation. They're splitting up. Elena reported from their command center. 3 teams breaking off toward pre-planned escape routes. Not escape, Miguel corrected. Recognizing the pattern distraction, watch Razor. Sure enough, the gang leader was using the chaos to move his core team into position. Military training showed in every movement this wasn't a retreat. It was a tactical repositioning. FBI securing the training facility, Sterling reported through their radio. But Miguel, they found Bod looks like the Black Talons cleaned house.